So now we're going to go through some squat basics. So first way we set up in the squat, we call this like a prying squat. We're going to get those feet around, shoulder width apart, almost like heels directly underneath the shoulder. I like to start with the hands in like a prayer position, and we're going to get the meat or the pointy part of this elbow right into the top meaty part of this thigh, like right on the top right there. And then we're going to use those elbows to pry the knees open and sit back into a squat. So things that we're looking for. We want to keep those feet in contact with the ground at all times, so we don't want to be up on the toes, right? Butt goes back first, knees go out. Again, elbow's going to be on top of that knee, prying those knees open and sitting down into a squat. If you find yourself like with those elbows a little bit too low, a lot of times what happens is people will be in this position with the spine's nice and rounded. If you get those elbows on top of the knee, it helps kind of keep a little bit more neutral spine and gives you something to kind of like leverage off of and sit back. So again, if we look at the ground contact right now, I've got a good amount of weight on my heels, a good amount of weight on the ball of my foot, and my toes are gripping the ground. So it kind of evens out almost like right around midfoot. I like to think 60% through the heel, 40% through the ball of the foot, and then gripping those toes down, forcing those knees out. Now a squat is where that hip is below the knee. So anything higher than that is not a squat, and that rep doesn't count. So again, we start at the top, prayer position, butt goes back, knees go out, force those knees out with those elbows. If you find yourself really tight, we can also do what we call a contract, relax, stretch. We've talked about this before. But what we're looking to do is, when you're down in this position, use those elbows to pry out. Simultaneously, I want you to squeeze your knees inward. So we're creating a whole bunch of tension through those hips. Hold it for about 5 seconds and relax. And what will happen is you'll find that those hips relax because we're creating a little bit of stability first. And in doing so, the body feels a little more comfortable and can relax into position. So do this a couple times to help open yourself up. You can kind of shift side to side just to open up your hips and get in that bottom position. Next up is, we've got two common squat patterns. We have, one is more of like a high bar or upright vertical squatting pattern, which most people are probably familiar with. It's more common in things like Olympic lifting because when you're jumping up the weight, we want to catch it in a neutral spine, right? So when you catch when you catch the bottom of a snatch, you want to be vertical, right? Same thing with a front squat, you don't want to be leaning forward. Our other position is going to be what we call a low bar squat. So rather than being upright, we're going to be a little bit more leaning forward, putting a little more emphasis through erectors, glutes, and hamstrings. So first, let's go through a high bar position. This is a little bit easier for people, so I always like to start with this first. So again, we'll start off in that prayer position, butt goes back, knees go out, force those elbows out. We're at the bottom of the squat, your hip is below the knee. Now, common things that you'll hear is eyes up or chest up out of the hole. So we're coming up more vertical. Again, butt goes back, knees go out. We're staying a little bit more vertical and upright in this position, looking forward and chest up. So what I'll have you do is just practice 4 or 5 reps here just to get that pattern down. Most people are more familiar with that. So next position is our low bar position, which is a little less common for people. Some people do it a little bit more naturally than others, but what we're looking for here, when we get down to the bottom, is rather than coming vertical and upright, we're going to initiate the movement with the hips by pushing those hips up and back. Right? Now, one of the things that we're looking for here is we want to keep those hips engaged when we come up. So what I mean by that is when we come down, a lot of times what happens is people's hips disengage, the knees collapse in, and in doing so, when those knees collapse in, they come forward in front of their center of mass. So if they have a bar on their back, you can see how that weight dumps forward in front of their center of mass, and now they end up using a lot of their low back to come back up. So your job here is, as we're down the bottom of that squat, we're going to continue forcing those knees out as we come up out of the hole, reaching that butt up and back first. You can see we're slightly bent over. We're going to be looking down in front of you, chest is down. And once we get to it right about here, you're thinking about squeezing that butt through. So again, butt goes back, knees go out. We're at the bottom of the squat. You're going to initiate that movement through the hips, pushing back, trying to keep that bar position or those shoulders, armpits, right over the arches of the foot and through. Back. Eyes are down right in front of you. Push up and back. So common things we see is people always have, especially when they have the bar on your back, is you're looking forward, squatting down, and that ends up scooping the hips under and turning into, like, again, that high bar position squat or some type of hybrid of the two. That's common issue number one. Common issue number two is those knees collapse, they dump forward, quads take over, and the low back ends up doing most of the work on the way up. So again, let's show good position, reach back, knees out, hips initiate the movement, pushing back and through. High bar position is where we're trying to come vertical or more upright, using a little bit more quads. This is going to be more common in our front squat or high bar squatting. And common issue number three is letting those knees collapse and pushing the shoulders forward and back using too much low back.